A barber and veteran of World War I reawakens with amnesia 10 years later, only to see his country, Tomania, has fallen under the sway of an anti-Semitic dictator named Adenoid Hinkle in the 1940 satire comedy The Great Dictator. And that's the movie we're digging up this week on Movie Bones.
Democracy stunk.
Democracy is fragrant.
Liberty stunk.
Liberty is odious.
Free sprechen stunk.
Freedom of speech is objectionable.
Tomania mit der grootste army in der Welt.
Tomania has the greatest army in the world.
Der grootste navy in der Welt.
The greatest navy in the world.
We zijn er der grootste alles und einer to sacrifice.
But to remain great, we must sacrifice.
Alles und einer Strotten tighten der Belten.
We must tighten our belts.
Heil Hinkel, ist man der Fürsten. Herring. Puppchen Herring.
That was Adenoid Hinkle, played by Charlie Chaplin. He's the Great Dictator, the title of the film. We were recording this a little later than we anticipated, but when I started writing the episode, it was like everything was still fresh in my mind. But as it's coming back to me now, it's like there's a lot to say about today, isn't there?
Yeah.
With all the stuff that's going on right now. But one of the things that I think of all the films that tackles, obviously, this is targeting, Hitler and Hitler's Germany, and was it Benito Mussolini's Italy and all that kind of stuff. And were other films about World War II or the Holocaust kind of really, like Schindler's List, for example, really gets you up close and personal with exactly what the ramifications of this kind of authoritarian, fascist authoritarian, governments can do and will do. This analyzes it from a different perspective. And I really appreciated that in a way because it does, underneath all the violence, really, you have to keep that in mind. But underneath it, what drives all of this, what I think the movie did really well, is the kind of infantileness, the juvenile nature of what drives a lot of this, this kind of machismo, if you want to put it that way. It's the fascist machismo. It's kind of an aesthetic, really. And it gets that part of it because this is what Chaplin does so well in the first place. He's lighthearted. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, did it strike you similarly?
Yeah. I mean, it's I like what word did you just use? Not
juvenile, infantile.
Yeah, I like all of that. The spoof nature. We don't have a bunch of anti-Nazi based comedy in a live action format, to my understanding. And, you've got cartoons because Disney does it, Warner Brothers do it.
Yeah.
And they're really, really good. One of my favorite things to teach is World War II propaganda, anti-Nazi and anti-fascism propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
And I use cartoons to do that because they're really good at doing that. So you've got this, the aesthetic. That's what I was kind of wanted to hit on. What this movie does a really good job of is, punching that aesthetic. I mean, with everything, they have like the, what's the actual symbol? Is it just like their symbol in the
their
movie.
version, the double Z.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like they have the double Z. They do everything they can, but basically say Nazis. And you know what it is. It's not hiding it from you.
No.
And they're spoofing it in their own way.
It's a spoof of, but it's still one that actually took some courage to make, I think, because, and it's actually, I think I read into this, is that, Chaplin himself pretty much funded this project from beginning to end. You can see his name all over the project. And whereas, a lot of the projects that would be a sign of disaster, it's not a disaster here. He does a really good job, better than most kind of actor, director, writer. Whenever you see that list of all the same person being behind it, I think it's because he was the only one, who believed in it that much that he was going to be, that he would take it all the way to his finish. And as he actually said in interviews, it's like, he was determined because he said that, I was determined to go ahead. He later wrote, for Hitler must be laughed at. And it's like, I get that. It's like, so he's on this like singular mission to produce this piece because, and the speech at the end kind of sums up you can feel the passion just rolling out of the actor himself. You can see it's less any character he's playing at that point. It's just him speaking directly to the audience. This is a passion project.
Sometimes like beyond war, things like that, one of the ways to bring them down is to mock them.
Yes. They're bullies, you know.
Yeah, they're bullies. And that's how he got into, I mean, that everything, his rise to power wasn't just speeches, it was bullying the German people into submission. You know, it started with basically love bombing them. And if you don't know what that means, it means that, you know, you're just hitting someone with as much, you know, goodness, quote unquote goodness as possible.
It boosts the ego.
Yeah, boost their ego. And like, we know why that had to happen. We know what caused all of that to happen. That's another thing about this movie that I really like, is it doesn't shy away from what happened for this situation to rise. You look at all that and like, okay, yeah, this guy is an effective leader in that way. How do we bring him down? Well, one way you can bring him down is through comedy.
Yeah. Comedy to deflate the ego, because that's the kind of thing is like, you know, authoritarianism and fascism in particular is so obsessed with the image of machismo, that ultra uber masculine kind of portrayal. And it is kind of like it's just a balloon, really. It's all surface and no content. But it looks really big. It's like kind of like, you know, those, you know, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloons, you know, it's like really, really big and really, really imposing. But if you get right down to it, it's just something but about a bunch of air and a bunch of gas, you know, holding it up. And and it's like, and that's kind of what it is. So he's trying to pop the balloon, no pun intended. And one of my favorite scenes actually does involve Charlie Chaplin doing this kind of almost ballet as the dictator. He's doing this ballet with an inflatable globe, and the way he does it too. And here comes to the artistry of what he's doing. He's taking all of that kind of grace that he had from his physical performance in the silent days. And he's doing this really kind of interesting dance in that scene where it's like he's projecting both the menace and this weird kind of obsession that authoritarians have, but he's doing it through this weird dance and relationship with, it's almost like his dance partner is the world. He wants the world, and he doesn't want it in a healthy way either. He just wants the world. When the movie's doing that kind of stuff, it was at the highest point for me. I think you said actually you wanted more of the drama, but it's like for me, the comedy elements really were what held me in most often, I think.
The comedy elements were good. I want to make that very clear. You know, even some of the more slapstick stuff, like the flying the plane upside down and everything.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious. And like, you know, and this is my first Charlie Chaplin movie, so I'm sitting there like, you know, okay, I get what it is. But like for me, there were times for me I was like, man, this, you know, I understand laughing at a dictator. I'm not against that whatsoever. But like, I can say in certain parts, like if this was just a purely serious movie, you know, I'd still watch it. You know, I definitely would still watch it and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a purely serious movie, I think I would want to. Because for me, the dramatic parts, it would need to be its own. It would be a lot more developed, because I never quite felt that those parts. I never understood the characters as characters. When things turn dramatic, that is, you know, when you're trying to understand these characters in a dramatic sense and not a comedic sense, I think you'd have to just start from scratch on whatever that story would be. And as far as that goes, it's like, I don't think that plays to Chaplin's strength as much. My understanding is Chaplin always was able to kind of highlight the dramatic through the comedy itself, and I think he still does that with the comedy. When it's pure drama, I think he's less successful at that. That being said, yeah, he's still doing an overall good job. I mean, it's hard to say, because I want a movie like this to knock it out of the park. You know, nothing is more, I think, more deserving of cultural relevance than the idea of trying to deflate that which is the worst in us, to bring it down to a level that's like, yes, it's ominous. Yes, it's violent. It's destructive. It's horrifying in reality and in its practice. But what can remind you, like, what can try to help keep your sanity throughout is that ultimately, even if it doesn't help you as a person living through it, it's like at the end of the day, it keeps you from hating. Anything that can keep you from hating, instead of just fighting the aggressor, which you need to do, you have to resist the aggressor, but you don't ever want to sink to hating them as an entity. That's a good way to strike back at it without damaging your soul, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Because we're always tempted to strike back in a way that's going to actually do damage to our own soul.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like in the comic books world, it's, you know, like, why doesn't Batman kill? Batman doesn't kill because he knows that if he kills, he'll become just like...
Yeah, he'll become the Punisher.
He'll become them. Yeah, exactly, and that's what he doesn't want to do.
And, I have issues with the Punisher,
If you allow yourself to, okay, well, I'm just going to do what they did to me or what they're doing, then the vicious cycle continues on. It just changes fonts, basically.
Yeah. Whenever one of these events happens in history, And we're going through some really stressful times now, and we could make parallels to there's plenty of parallels you can see what's going on right now. Just this week, we saw something with Jimmy Kimmel, if you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
So that in itself was one of the things, but but that's just one of the series of things we're dealing with today and you can react with outrage to that. But at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, and you pray that we pull back from the direction we're going in because it's nowhere good. When it's all said and done, we still have to live with each other at some level. You cannot just say, eject the people from the world that did these things. You can try to seek whatever justice you can, but justice isn't also, just kind of locking, throwing people away. So when everything is said and done, you have to be able to have some kind of rejoining of society, but with the understanding that we can't do this again. And we have to recognize that kind of a thing. I think it came out before they knew all about the Holocaust, at least the full extent of it, because I think that they didn't actually kind of get into that part of the consequences, as far as I could remember.
I mean, they at least knew about, like, the concentration camps.
Yeah.
And when I mean by the concentration camps, folks, I'm talking about basically anyone that's a political prisoner of the Nazi Party were in the concentration camps. Now, again, we didn't really know the extent of the horrors of those concentration camps.
But we knew that they existed and that the Jews were persecuted, which is still portrayed in the film.
And if they're being persecuted, you put two and two together, they're probably going off to the camps and everything like that.
Yeah.
I thought another kind of interesting thing that happened in this movie, like in the movie, it's like they decide, oh, we're not going to actually persecute the Jews anymore. And that kind of gets around and it's like, oh, we'll be fine. And then like something changes and then like, they decide, okay, we are going to actually still go ahead and go through with it.
And it does speak to something of our human nature too. It's like the desire to see the light at the end of the tunnel before it's anywhere near justified. Maybe this is the thing where things get better and you want to believe it and you hope it's true. But as long as the same people with the same character are there, character is, as they say, a character is destiny. I think we have a saying in my religious ed class, what your thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny. So by the time someone's demonstrating their character, I mean, outwardly, think about Hitler or Mussolini, right? Their outward character. It's like, and to see someone like change, like just like boom, like that. It's like, oh, I think it's all, even though nothing else has changed. It's like, yeah, no. You want to say, I hope that you poor thing. Someone just doesn't usually wake up and miraculously. I mean, I guess you could always have like a St. Paul or something, but in terms of like an actual world leader, it's like that I have never seen. I found it at least apt in a certain respect. I thought they were going to bring. I thought it was going to be like what is that name of that story? The Brave Little Tailor. That kind of a thing.
Actually, don't know that.
That's the wrong one. It's the Prince and the Pauper. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
They actually have the barber come into a position of being mistaken for Hinkle much sooner, and actually that would have been more interesting, I thought. But
one thing I kept thinking, what I kept thinking was going to happen. He's going to basically be hired as like a decoy. And everything, or as someone that was like, basically, you look enough like him that it's going to be a situation where we need you to keep him safe, or something. I actually was thinking too something else, like something would happen to the bad guy, and everything, and they would quickly just put him in and make him be the dictator for a little while,
right? Almost kind of like Dave, the movie Dave.
Yeah,
something like that, but with Hitler.
Yeah.
I was really kind of disappointed that they only kind of do that at the last minute, and it's just in time for him to do a speech at the end. But I think the speech would have been even more powerful if he had been kind of like done like his Charlie Chaplin character. He's just kind of at the mercy of events going on around him until the very end when he has an opportunity to speak to all these people about what's on his heart and mind. I think that would have been more powerful if you'd had to see him getting pushed around, in a sense of like, you have to do this, you have to sign these things, or you have to show up here. And you could have mined that for some real opportunity, I think, and made more of it.
This was always what I thought the premise of the movies was before I actually watched the movie. Like I was just always guessing. I always thought like, maybe it was a movie where the guy was like, just, bungled his way into being a leader. And then like through his own errors of misjudging people and things like that and being tricked, he would wind up creating, something that's, like the Nazi Party by accident. And then when he realizes is when all this stuff is wrong, which he would have figured it out, like, really figured it out. And then that's when he gives that speech and everything. And I knew it was going to be the end of the movie. The idea that someone, through just a bunch of comedic errors, wound up creating an accidental dictatorship.
I think there's any number of ways you could actually have pulled it off more successfully. That said, I still think there's at least half of a really good movie in here. There's really good sketches. I would say this is like almost like a sketch film in the parts that work. I will say I love the wordplay that he does. It's not thinly veiled who he's targeting, but the wordplay, like, Herring instead of Goering, garbage instead of Goebbels, Napoleoni instead of Mussolini. It was pretty clever stuff, and the way they use it, and some of the physical gags too, especially when, like, Hinkle is like doing his rally speech in the first part of the film. And things like the microphone bending over backwards, stuff like that. It's like, it wasn't the expected kind of physical humor I was expecting, or the expected kind of humor. They weren't predictable gags.
The train scene I thought was really funny.
Oh, yeah. Back and forth and back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really funny. And one of the reasons why I thought that was funny was because of, like, Mussolini's most famous sayings and everything. That the trains would run on time, something like that. It's not really about the train being late, but it's about the train continuously going back and forth.
Yeah. I thought that too.
I really wondered if that was like if that was to, a tongue-in-cheek way of, thumbing their nose up at him.
I think it actually probably, the more I think about it, it probably is pretty consciously. It feels too knowing not to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels too knowing not to be.
My final take on it is this, and the film right now is really a poignant film. You could maybe say, oh, no, it's not our side, or it's not our side, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that part. What I care about is you understanding this, that right now, on the current course we're on, there's a lot of people on a lot of different sides that want to make this a reality again. They want to censor people talking. They want to do a lot of bad stuff. This movie is a pie in the face to all of those people that want to do those bad things. That's the problem. It does not say that democracy is bad in this movie. What it is saying is we need to be careful about who we vote for, because sometimes the people that we vote for do not have our best intentions at heart. And what I mean by that is this. If you allow yourself to fall into hatred, you are asking for a fascist regime like the Nazi Party, or Italy, or, any other kind of bad actor to rise up again and destroy the world. That's what happened. And we've been picking up the pieces since. If we're not careful, we will fall victim to that same entire mentality again. Go back and watch the speech over and over and over again. And, just be kind to each other. As for my verdict on this movie, I say this with as much, this is a, trust me, this belongs in a museum type of movie, and it belongs in a museum that we frequently visit to understand that there were people that were against this kind of mentality back when the Nazis were actually doing what they were doing, and we need to look back on them and learn from the past, or we are going to be doomed to repeat the past.
This belongs in a museum with me, mostly because the good parts are really, really good. If they were all that good, I'd have no problem making it, Fortune and Glory. And if it was, all the other one, it's like it would be, don't look at it. It's a mixed bag. I wished the parts that weren't as good, the dramatic parts were, I wish it was revamped so the dramatic parts were either better or more likely just incorporated better into the satire parts. But yeah, what you were saying before is like, I would say it this way, is that the seeds for authoritarianism can be found independently of any political leaning. That doesn't mean that this side or that side is always in perfect balance with the other side. The temptation is always there. It is important to recognize when there's a particular side that's gaining an advantage at the moment and actually making tracks, because that's part of the history too, is that they, the ingratiating into the structures of power that then can make the awful things become real. As someone else says, fascism was what happens when 1/3 of a country tries to eliminate or reject another third of the country, while the remaining third just watches. These things never happen with an absolute majority, supporting it. There's a bare majority. Yeah. You might get a bare majority at times. The core of support for this kind of thing doesn't tend to rise. The diehards, that is, don't tend to rise much above 30%. It's depressing to have to think about these things, but it's also important. And so go watch it every now and then. And if you want to, just watch the parts to remind yourself that no matter what happens, you have to keep your sense of humor. Even the darkest times, you need that. So at this time, Ryan and I like to remind our listeners out there that if you're having a good time watching alongside of us, please do like, subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Let us know what you think we got wrong, and of course, nominate some titles you'd like us to see do, because this is a participatory kind of experience. But next week we have another film coming up, and Ryan, why don't you tell them what we're in for?
Did I pick this or did you pick this?
I think I picked it.
Okay.
Yeah. I have seen it, but only just recently for the first time, so this is still a new movie for me.
Tubi says, after a beautiful bride boards an ocean liner with her new husband, he goes into hiding and she becomes the target of a murder conspiracy. This is the 1953 movie, starring, directed by Joseph Newman, titled Dangerous Crossing.
That's what we got coming up next week. Please do join us for that. Watch it with us, please. We like having company along over these things. And besides, we've gotten so used to talking about spoilers now. We don't even give warnings for it anymore. We just kind of go in. So know that going forward if you're just joining us for the first time. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. And Ryan, I guess I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Strange. And I always thought of you as an Aryan.
I'm a vegetarian.